Welcome to The Anxious Voyage. If you think that title sounds bleak or foreboding, one of two things must be true. You're very lucky, or you need to get out more. On this program, we share stories of life and living. We compare notes. We discover commonalities. We accept that life is a glorious, heartbreaking thing, and we embrace and celebrate all of it. Take the ride with us. We're glad you're here. Now, here's your host, Mark O'Brien.
Hello and welcome indeed. We are certainly glad you're here. We are coming to you again, and as always, from World Headquarters in Middletown, Connecticut. And this is the point at which I most frequently make some really lame joke about Middletown. But I'm not going to do that today because my guest and I have much to talk about. So please first let me introduce to you Izabela Oquendo. And Izzy, thank you for being here.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Okay. We are going to fairly shamelessly plug your book, which is called The Opposite of Empty. And there are a number of things in here that I'm really kind of eager to get to. I mentioned to you before we went on the air that the very first note I wrote to myself in the introduction was machine, because of the way you were talking about the education system and likening it to corporate structure. So if I may, I just want to read this brief paragraph. Children are literally taught what to think, what to do, how to behave, what to strive for, and who they are supposed to be from ages 5 to 25. They come out of the school system different at their core than when they entered. They go in with their true spirit intact and come out conditioned to seek approval, follow the rules, and doubt their own intuition. I've certainly thought those kinds of things before, but you say them, you write them here with such conviction. Would you like to talk about that a little?
Yeah, sure. So, I've seen it just, I taught college for a number of years. So I was kind of like on the back end of this process, the final stage, if you will. And it was just so interesting for me to see how similar all of the students were, regardless of, this was college, so they came from all over the place, right? And they were just so similar. Their study habits were similar. They all assumed they learned the same way. They all they just had a lot of commonalities among them. And, and I thought back to my own childhood and going through the school machine. It just, you're taught rules. You go into school and the first thing that they teach you is you have to raise your hand before you get up to go to the bathroom. You have to raise your hand if you want to talk. You have to stand in line. You have to, you have to follow this particular regimented schedule. And yeah, it does help to kind of get kids into a routine, and it is how the world works. I will admit that. I just think that there's so much inflexibility in the school system, and they treat all kids kind of the same. They just assume that all kids understand things in the same way. And they try. And here's the thing. My background is in school psychology. So I went into the school system thinking that I was going to help young kids. And what happened was I actually dropped out of my program when I was in my second year. It was a 3-year program. I dropped out after my second year. I finished the master's degree and I didn't complete it because I just saw how broken the system was. In my first year studying school psychology, we were learning about, special education and how kids learn. And the different ways that we need to be inclusive for, all the kids and all their different learning styles and things like that. And I was just like, wow, like this is great, because I never saw this when I was a kid. Maybe, just being a kid existing in the world, you don't pay attention to that kind of stuff. And I was like, this would be really helpful. I love this. And then I did my practicum in a school, and I saw that it's all just theory. It's not possible for it to be applied. So I can't say that there are bad intentions in the school system. I don't think there are. I just think that there are not enough resources. Teachers are not educated in the right way. And where I did my practicum was in inner city. So, it was a poorer community. It was actually where I grew up. But it was like the school was just underfunded, understaffed, overwhelmed. Parents were not super involved in their kids' lives and things like that. And I just saw how broken the system was. I saw the kids slipping through the cracks, and it broke my heart. And that's when I had to change course. And I knew that I couldn't do that, because I think that there's so much value in education, and I think that it could be done in such a better way. But I'm only one person, and even I don't know where to start to fix it.
Wow. I was going to ask next, and I think you just addressed it to some extent. Did you, when you made that decision, did you feel like you were giving up on a fight or walking away from something?
I did. I felt defeated, honestly. I did a whole year in that practicum, and I felt defeated. I felt like, maybe if I had started in like a more rural school district, maybe I would have had a different outlook. But, they threw me to the wolves, which I'm actually grateful for now, because I might not have ever seen this side. And again, I went through this education system. That was my hometown. But I never saw it from the inside out, if you know what I mean. So, I definitely felt it was a hard decision. I felt like I was giving up, but I also knew that for my own sanity, it just didn't feel right. And I just knew that it wasn't going to be something that I was going to be. I'm one of those people that just wants to change everything and do things my own way. And I could see that wasn't the type of environment for that.
Yeah, for whatever this is worth, I suspect it would frustrate me too. I have two attendant questions there. What was the grade level that you were working with in your practicum?
It was middle school, so 6th to 8th grade.
Wow.
Which is a hard group to begin with.
Well, yeah. And so, among other things, actually, I just thought of another question. Among other things, did you think that they didn't pay attention to you or didn't respect you?
The students, you mean?
Yes.
Well, I was kind of closer to their age than other people in the school. So there was that kind of like weird dynamic, as any student goes through, any student teacher, student guidance counselor, everybody goes through it, right? In the middle school and high school environments especially. So, and particularly because I wasn't there full time. It was a half-time practicum. So that kind of got in the way of building the connections and things like that too. And maybe I'm making excuses, because no, they didn't really respect me at all.
Yeah, I'm not at all sure that you're making excuses. You may have noticed that I was jotting a note a moment ago, and the note actually surprised me. And what I wrote was social order. And I wrote that because I was thinking two things. If we are not introducing children to that kind of discipline, and I'm not at all suggesting that it's the responsibility of the school system to be the primary agent of that discipline. But if we're not instilling that discipline in children, what happens to the social order as they get older? And my second attendant question is, Is there anything else that can be done in a public school system? I mean, I'm no fan of standardization either, but for a public school system that has to try to, I use the verb teach loosely, so many children of so many different temperaments and personalities, it's hard to imagine how that could work.
Yeah, and this is so much bigger than education because the discipline needs to start at home. There need to be standards and expectations set for these kids before they even set foot in a school. And especially in schools like the one that I worked at, that doesn't happen. And so, I mean, the kids that I worked with, it ranged from, the helicopter moms to the moms that were in jail. And they were being raised by grandparents who were completely overwhelmed. So, I mean, it was just like, it was a whole spectrum of different kinds of parents, and you can see the outcomes in the kids. Like there was a kid, he was in 8th grade, so he couldn't have been more than like 14 or 15, who had tattoos, so it was just things like that. I witnessed 1 or 2 pregnancies in middle school.
Wow.
So it's difficult. And then you also have the parents who just see their kids as doing no wrong. So there was this one child, I'll give you a little story here. She was just, I don't even know the word to describe it, but very misbehaved and misguided too. She would start fights all the time, and she would talk back to teachers, and just a very, very disrespectful kid. She was in 6th grade. And, we eventually had to call a meeting with her mother, unsurprisingly. And as soon as we sat down and started the conversation, you could tell that this was not going to go well. So one of the big things was this girl couldn't get to class on time. And so the mother was asking, okay, well, like, what's going on? Like, why can't you help her get to class on time? And we were like, well, I mean, she's in 6th grade.
How do you help her get to class on time?
Right. So we described how the school works, right? So the kids, they do change classes. I think like they're in groups, and the classes were like within a few doors of each other. So one section, they weren't leaving that section of the school. They were able to leave their class, use the bathroom, go to their locker, and then go to their next class. And this girl was constantly late for class, even though she was going like a door next door. And so the mother was like, well, how is she supposed to know when she's supposed to go into class? And, we described how the teachers stand outside the doors, and they have 2 minutes to go from one class to another. And the mother goes, well, do they have bells? And we were like, well, no, we don't have bells because there's different things going on in the school at the same time. And she says, well, then that's why she's late, because there's no bells. She doesn't know when she's supposed to be in class. And we were just like, oh, okay, well, I guess maybe this conversation isn't going to go anywhere. So it was just like little things like that. That conversation continued, and there were just excuses upon excuses. And again, like, this is a kid that doesn't go home and get spoken to. I can't even imagine if my parents ever got called to school. You wouldn't see me for the rest of the year except at school. And like, it's just not like that anymore. Or maybe it's this particular population that I'm talking about, but it feels very different than when I was in school.
All I can think of is one of the words that comes to mind, of course, is maturity. So if a person is immature enough to have expectations that low for a child, what do they think is going to happen? I mean, it's just maybe I can say what I'm about to say because I'm as old as I am, but that seems to be an appalling lack of foresight.
Agreed, 100%.
All right.
Yeah,
So
I mean, it makes you think about what these kids are going to be like as adults, and what kind of, responsibility they're going to take for their own actions. And I mean, these are kids that grow up thinking that the world owes them something.
Yeah. So one of the words that also comes to mind, and I actually think it's going to help us to get into your book a little bit, is agency. And so if you happen to be a person who grows up thinking that the world owes you something, you're not going to develop any sense of your own agency. And I will say that, sorry, I'm going to have to use the word purpose of the word purpose twice. The purpose of your book is to help people find their purpose.
Mm-hmm.
But it occurs to me right now that if you have no sense of your own agency, how can you even go about understanding a purpose, let alone finding it?
Yeah, purpose seeking happens at the top of the hierarchy of needs. So that means that there's 5 levels that need to be accomplished first. So somebody, for example, at the very bottom who lacks basic shelter and food and necessities like that isn't somebody that's going to be seeking purpose, right? And if you climb up the hierarchy of needs, you get into, social expectations and relationships and things like that. And somebody who struggles to maintain relationships and struggles to function in society also probably can't seek purpose. So I would say that purpose work is not for everybody, honestly.
Oh, interesting. I'm just going to throw this in here. I also wonder how a child of 14 or 15 who may come from less than privileged circumstances, economically challenged circumstances, can afford to get tattoos. and I'm just going to say this too. I have 2 of them. I have one on each shoulder, and they're not cheap.
No, but they were also gang-related tattoos. So
okay.
I would guess that that's why and how.
All right, I'll just throw in this little anecdote. I was going for an MRI one time. So I'm with this young man who's going to administer the MRI exam, and how he thought to ask me this question first, as opposed to the one he could have asked, I'll never understand. But he said to me, "Have you ever been in prison?" And I said, "As a matter of fact, no. But why do you ask?" And he said, "Because if you have tattoos," and he had no idea if I did at that point, "if you have tattoos and you got them in prison, it's highly likely that the ink is going to have a higher degree of iron content. So when you get in the MRI machine, it's going to burn you."
Huh.
I said, I don't think we have anything to worry about there. We're good.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah. So anyway, I can't even imagine what I want to ask you first. So I'm going to ask this question, and we're probably going to end up having to take a break before we cover it fully. But the first thing I want to ask you, and I have a number of attendant questions around this, is the difference in your book between core beliefs and values, and relatedly, do you necessarily think that core beliefs are limiting?
Yes, 100%. So core beliefs are, so just to kind of outline the difference between the two. So core beliefs are what we believe about ourselves and our abilities. And core values are what we believe about the world outside of ourselves. So both they can come from the same places. So your beliefs can come from parents and conditioning in your childhood, teachers' opinions, your own experiences and successes and failures. And values can come from similar places. You can also mimic your parents' values and the community that you grew up in. It can come from experiences, because you can have bad experiences with the things that you thought you valued and then switch your values, right? So, it can definitely be limiting, because here's another caveat. Beliefs can and should be controlled, and they can be changed. So yes, they are 100% limiting, because we oftentimes have beliefs about our own capabilities and, who we are and what defines us that is not 100% based in fact. It comes from, other people's opinions of us sometimes, and how we perceive our own accomplishments. And it's not always factual. We are a lot harder on ourselves than we would be on someone else. So
that's
yeah,
cool.
we hold ourselves back a lot in that sense, for sure.
And then of course there's always Dunning-Kruger, and that whole thing blows my mind. And it's not because I don't understand it or I haven't witnessed it. I've seen it a million times, but it just amazes me that, given Dunning-Kruger's thesis, that people with lower levels of competence have higher visions of themselves, or higher imaginings of themselves. That freaks me out.
Yeah.
Okay, so you know what? I think we will take our first break right here, because I have a few other questions that I think are going to start getting a little bit deeper.
Okay.
So let's take our first break right now. And for everybody who's joining us today, we will be back in 3 minutes. Please stay with us.
Everybody has a story. Everyone's story deserves to be told, and the only bad stories are the ones we don't share. That's why Mark O'Brien created The Anxious Voyage. It's Mark's conviction that every story deserves to be shared, and his purpose is to give people in all walks of life, from any circumstances, a chance to tell their stories. The Anxious Voyage is now on syndicated Dream Vision 7 radio network every Monday at 1 a.m. and 1 p.m. Eastern Time, with live broadcast every first and third Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Please tune in, please join Mark, and please share your stories.
Ever wonder what it's like to have your own radio show? Well, wonder no longer, because you can dip into the radio airwaves by being host for the day on syndicated Dream Vision 7 radio network. It's a fabulous way to get your radio feet wet. It's an opportunity to market your business, modality, or book. Have a guest, mention a sponsor, and take callers. Or you may want to facilitate a lesson by going solo. It's up to you. Listeners can be online, mobile, in cars with Bluetooth, or listen through Amazon's Echo by asking, Alexa, play Dream Vision 7 Radio Network. For more details, go to dreamvision7radio.com and click on Host for the Day.
You can't establish your brand's authority without a voice. That's why, since 2004, O'Brien Communications Group, OCG, has been helping companies establish their authority, find their brands, distinct voices, and position their brands effectively and persuasively. So effectively that 9 of OCG's clients have been acquired by other companies. OCG's business model emphasizes efficiency and results, not hourly billing, markups, and media commissions. That ensures OCG's advice is unbiased and its clients aren't at financial risk. If you're ready to find your voice and use it to tell your story, OCG is ready to help. You can find O'Brien Communications Group on the web at o'briencg.com. That's OBRIENCG.com, or call 860-944-9022.
Calling all authors. Have you been considering an audiobook? Well, look no further. Come take advantage of Dream Vision 7 Radio Network's unique in-house audiobook production, which includes benefits and bonuses from our radio station. Let our knowledgeable staff guide you to create the audiobook you've always dreamed of without breaking the bank. Check out our full one-stop service from A to Z, including the ACX process. Schedule a free consultation by calling 508-226-1723. That's 508-226-1723. Or go to dreamvision7radio.com.
This is Dream Vision 7 Radio Network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe, relax, and enjoy. Let life flow.
Hello and welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. Izzy, thank you again for being here. During the break, I found something that I meant to read in the first segment. And there are two thoughts which I took to be connected. Don't forget, schools are part of the system, and the system's job is to churn out worker bees. Wow. That's frightening. I don't doubt that it's true, and it helps me to see the connections between what I'll call the products of our public school systems and what the expectations are. But I also want to read this too because it's beautiful. As you can see, there are a lot of facets to the idea of a life's purpose. Before I started my work and research, I believed all of the above to be true. I floundered in the idea that finding purpose is the soul enlightening grand journey to nirvana, full of trippy epiphanies and metaphors and symbols. First of all, I loved that. And then the next sentence literally stopped me. In reality, the journey looks a whole lot like a typical Tuesday. That is brilliant. You just go about your life making small changes in your thoughts and actions until you have a better understanding of what fills your cup. It requires bold moves, but there's no reasons those moves can't be calculated and well prepared. That, it seems to me, is, I'll put it this way, would strike a lot of people as a revelation because, and I've said this before, I think, wow, and this goes directly back to education. I think adults paralyze themselves if they want to make change because they think the first step in the change has to be perfect. And because they think it has to be perfect, they think if they can somehow find a way to make it perfect, then everything else is just going to fall into place. And so aside from the fact that it's just beautiful writing, I loved the practicality of that. How do you learn that?
Yeah, so it kind of goes back to how I believe that education kind of like disconnects us from our intuition. Because, you know, a child, when they're in school and, for example, they feel like they need to just like move, right? They can't. They're sitting there and they're not allowed to get up from their seat without raising their hand and having a reason to get up and move. And I think that that kind of like restraint that we are conditioned to have from a very young age disconnects us from our body and from being in tune with what our body needs, because our bodies come equipped with intuition. We can feel and see things and know things that we probably shouldn't know, think, or feel, right? And we, over the years, you know, as kids, it's a lot easier to tap into that. But when we exist in society and we have to abide by society's rules and listen to the teacher and raise our hand when we feel like we have to get up and stretch, you know, it starts, that mind-body connection starts to dissipate. And the intuition goes away with it. So, you know, as adults, it's very difficult to tap back into that intuition. I've figured out how to do it. But I will say the majority of the population cannot, and they don't listen to their bodies. And I think that this is where a lot of health issues come from. And I think it's where a lot of cortisol in the body builds because the body is telling you what it needs. Our minds just don't know how to listen to it. So the body gets stressed. And then there's all of the things that happen when we have a lot of cortisol in our bodies. And to circle back to your point about, finding purpose and, it's being frozen in fear as adults, we are that way because we can't listen to our bodies. We can't use our intuitive guidance because we don't know how to. So instead, we try to perfect everything. We just sit around and wait until the circumstances are perfect. And only then do we feel confident to act. And that's 100% incorrect because nothing is ever going to be perfect. That's like when they say, waiting for the perfect time to have a baby, for example. There's never going to be a perfect time. Your finances are never going to be great. You're never going to be where you want to be in your career. And the stars are never going to align in a way where everything's going to be like an epiphany, like I said in the passage that you just read. You're not going to see that. You're not going to see signs pointing to the direction that you need to go in. You just need to start making moves. And when you start making moves, that invites more clarity, and you learn things, you make mistakes, and you pivot, and you just have to have that conviction, and you just have to keep going. And just through the process, I learned to tap back into my intuition, and I learned how to overcome fear because I've learned how to just move with the fear.
I don't know if you had a moment to look at something I sent you shortly before the program started.
I started reading it on the break, yes.
Okay, so it occurred to me while you were talking just now that the opposite of the Dunning-Kruger effect is what people refer to as the imposter syndrome. I don't think a phenomenon like the one imposter syndrome has come to be called would be possible if we were not conditioned out of all of the things that you were just talking about. If we were not conditioned to ignore our intuition and to ignore our bodies. So you may have derived from the piece. I don't subscribe to imposter syndrome. I don't think there's any such thing. And I think, given what you were just saying, if we don't approach deliberate change with some kind of trepidation, if not fear, what do we expect? I mean, right? There's another attendant term here, comfort zone. If we just wanted to be comfortable all the time, we'd never change. That just, again, I'm going to use the word practical. That just seems, maybe it's because of the way you put it in the book, but it just seems common sensible to me.
Yeah. One of my favorite quotes, and this is, I don't know if this is a true quote, but it's from The Greatest Showman. Did you see that movie?
I did not. I know of it, but I did not see it.
Yeah, it's about the Barnum and Bailey circus and the history of it.
Yeah.
And I think it was Barnum in the movie that said, "Comfort is the enemy of progress."
I've seen that. I didn't know who said it either.
Yeah, I don't know if it actually comes from him, if he's the source of it or not, but that's where I heard that quote for the first time. And it just it's always stuck with me because, yeah, I mean, if you live in your comfort zone, if you stay where things are always the same, they're always going to be the same.
Yeah. I was reading an article. It might have been an interview with a doctor. I can't remember who it was, but the notion came up that people didn't exercise because it made them uncomfortable. And the doctor said, "Who said you're supposed to be comfortable?" I mean, that struck me as a brilliant question.
Right.
So I keep looking at my notes because every single thing we're talking about keeps connecting here. In the part of the book where you were talking about mindful manifest flow, you said that is about releasing self-interest. And two things occurred to me there. One is, could we say that's roughly the same as accepting the fact that we live with uncertainty? Because we do. And if we don't think we do, we're probably headed for trouble. And the next thing I wrote was shedding expectations. And I don't know if I ever shared this with you, but forever, I've been toying with the idea of writing a book called I Thought Bananas Were Purple. Because when people get confronted with things that completely counter their expectations, they always say exactly the same thing. Whatever they're going to say always starts with, yeah, but I thought, and I just want to say to them, hold on a minute. I respect that, but it doesn't matter because you just found out whatever you thought isn't true. The question is, what are you going to do now? So is that related to what you mean by mindful manifest flow?
So mindful manifest flow, just to give the listeners a little bit of background, it's a program that I developed. It kind of came to me one night as I was doing my purpose work and my journaling. And this was after some personal crises that happened in my life. And it came to me, I don't know, Mark, if you've ever had this happen where just like, it like something just like comes to you and it just like, you see it clear as day and you know exactly what you need to do next. Did that ever happen to you?
Yeah, not a lot, but yes.
Yeah, this has happened like probably 2 or 3 times for me. And this was one of the, like, this was the most significant one. And it was just this like clear outline because I was doing mindfulness meditation at the time. And, you know, this came to me clear as day. And it said, these are the things you need to focus on in your meditations. And you need to live your life in a mindful state, meaning that you are in the present. You are not thinking about the future. You're not thinking about the past. You're just taking in with your senses what is going on around you. And the key to true mindfulness is to do it all without judgment. So you observe your environment, but you make no assumptions about it and you take no action on it. You just take it in and you live in the present and you live mindfully. So, yeah. So to answer your question, you know, about releasing self-interest and, you know, just living is so yeah, it is because you're releasing everything around you essentially. And for me, it made me a lot more present. I have 2 little kids and, you know, it just really helped me to be there for them. I'm not sitting there playing with them, thinking about what's going to be for dinner. I'm there enjoying them and talking to them and looking them in the face. And this is another thing that that in the world of education, I've noticed that kids don't make eye contact, you know, and they're raised by screens in a lot of cases and things like that. So I've been making a really conscious effort to just be there. And, you know, I put aside, you know, yes, I have to check my emails. Yes, I have to start getting dinner ready, but I put all of those things aside when I'm in the moment. And my goal is to focus on the exact thing that I'm doing in front of me and not have my mind run off elsewhere. So Mindful Manifest Flow is a 10-week meditation series that guides the listener through that process that I went through to get to that point of, and it also brings in, I forgot to mention this, it also brings in, this is the core of the whole program. It brings in manifestation. So manifestation is essentially when you create your outward reality with your thoughts. Mm-hmm. So the program, it starts with, it's anchored. So manifestation is anchored in gratitude. And so that's where Mindful Manifest Flow starts is you learn how to be grateful for your current conditions. And then it walks you through being grateful as if the thing that you want has already happened. So you're grateful for a thing that you don't have yet. And the program kind of helps you to tap into those emotions and to create that within yourself. So, it really, I call it a quantum leap. Okay. So this is kind of a woo-woo term, but it's essentially like getting to the point where you are in your mind the person who you desire to be, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It makes perfect sense. I think I want to use this as a turning point or a segue. So what I'd like to do is take our second commercial break right now. Get that behind us. We can get into the third segment. So again, please stay with us. We'll be back in 3 minutes. See you on the other side.
Are you ready for the quantum age?
Humanity's next step in evolution?
Dream Vision 7 Radio Network invites you to the extraordinary platform of evolutionary voices for the quantum age.
Let's explore. Learn more about this upcoming age where we bridge science with spirituality.
Where potentiality meets reality.
Where we take compassion into action.
Our trailblazers and visionaries will ask the whys, the what ifs, while igniting continuous possibility.
Come along with us into an age beyond what we know today, where we can grow together in unity consciousness.
Experience evolutionary voices for the quantum age, Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. Eastern on DreamVision7Radio.com.
You can't establish your brand's authority without a voice. That's why, since 2004, O'Brien Communications Group, OCG, has been helping companies establish their authority, find their brands, distinct voices, and position their brands effectively and persuasively. So effectively that 9 of OCG's clients have been acquired by other companies. OCG's business model emphasizes efficiency and results, not hourly billing, markups, and media commissions. That ensures OCG's advice is unbiased and its clients aren't at financial risk. If you're ready to find your voice and use it to tell your story, OCG is ready to help. You can find O'Brien Communications Group on the web at o'briencg.com. That's OBRIENCG.com or call 860-944-9022.
Calling all authors. Have you been considering an audiobook? Well, look no further. Come take advantage of Dream Vision 7 Radio Network's unique in-house audiobook production, which includes benefits and bonuses from our radio station. Let our knowledgeable staff guide you to create the audiobook you've always dreamed of without breaking the bank. Check out our full one-stop service from A to Z, including the ACX process. Schedule a free consultation by calling 508-226-1723. That's 508-226-1723. Or go to DreamVision7Radio.com.
Everybody has a story. Everyone's story deserves to be told, and the only bad stories are the ones we don't share. That's why Mark O'Brien created The Anxious Voyage. It's Mark's conviction that every story deserves to be shared, and his purpose is to give people in all walks of life from any circumstances a chance to tell their stories. The Anxious Voyage is now on syndicated Dream Vision 7 Radio Network every Monday at 1 a.m. and 1 p.m. Eastern Time, with live broadcast every first and third Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Please tune in, please join Mark, and please share your stories.
This is Dream Vision 7 Radio Network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe, relax, and enjoy. Let life flow.
Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for staying with us. Izzy, thank you for not disappearing during the break. I may be wrong about this, but I may be on the verge of one of those sort of breakthrough things that you were describing earlier. But here's what I want to ask about mindful manifest flow. And I understand exactly what you were saying about being in the present without judgment. Is there a place in there of using what we've learned from our past to inform our future.
Interesting. Well, in mindfulness, we're not supposed to consider the past or the present. So that's an interesting question. So do you mean for like the result of the program, for like the desire that we're trying to achieve?
No. And maybe this is my particular challenge. But when I think about or hear people talking about being in the moment and being in the now, and I think I understand the concept, or maybe I'm about to prove that I don't. But I can't separate myself from what has come before in my own life. As a matter of fact, in a lot of ways, I don't even feel detached from that, from the person I've been. It still feels like part of my own present. But I think whatever I've gained from that needs to inform my own future, or else all of that has been wasted, hasn't it?
It can inform, but it shouldn't impact. It shouldn't be something that you dwell on. It should kind of like, your past should integrate into your present, and it's not something that should be revisited consciously on a regular basis. And if it is, then there's probably some trauma processing that needs to happen.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, and I certainly don't think for a moment that the past needs to be or should be relived in any way. But if it hasn't been instructive or educational in some way, then I don't know. It seems to me that it's been wasted to some extent.
No, I agree. And I think that the things we've experienced and, the things that we've lived through, they weave together who we are now. So, your past just inherently is already integrated into your being, right? So that's why I say that it's not something that we need to necessarily consciously revisit. I mean, of course, if there's something specific, like, you're trying to analyze something like, oh, wait, I went through something like this 10 years ago. Yeah, okay, then rehash it, figure out your thought process, see what worked, see what didn't. But I don't think that there's any reason to regularly visit the past. I think that it already exists in who we are, and it already does inform our future because of that. So it's already in there. I just don't think that there's any great reason. I mean, I think it's detrimental actually to revisit the past too often.
Okay. And I do understand what you're saying. And I do agree with you. I really, really like the fact that you used the term integrated. So I guess the best way to put it is, I don't feel disintegrated from that. And from what I've learned, and, if people say to me, well, don't you wish you could go back, and don't you? No, I don't, because I don't ever want to be that stupid again. So I do get that. So here's another, I think, big question that needs to be asked before we run out of time. How, in your estimation, are passion and purpose different, or how do they inform each other?
So passion is a part of purpose. So in my book, I outline the purpose activation blueprint, and there's 7 components to purpose, and passion is one of them. It's actually probably the one that's most similar to the final outcome, but it doesn't contain all of the other elements. For example, one of the last things that I talk about in the purpose activation blueprint is service to others. You can have passions that have nothing to do with other people. You can love painting and just hoard all of your paintings in your closet and never show them to anybody. That can be a passion of yours. But for it to serve a purpose, for it to give you purpose, you have to share the thing with others, right? So yeah, there are a lot of similarities because passion is something that lights us up. It makes us happy. It makes us feel like what we're doing is worthwhile. But it doesn't necessarily, passion is, it can be more like contained within the self, whereas purpose is serving the greater good. Does that make sense?
It does. And sorry, I was scribbling. You just made me think of something else I hadn't thought of. In some ways, doesn't or couldn't passion equate to energy? Because I can just say that the things that I'm most passionate about, let's just say writing, for example, that gives me tremendous energy. And it's all positive. Mm-hmm. So, is it okay if I equate the two, passion and energy?
I think so. Yeah, I think that it's fair to say that passion, that when you're working from a place of passion, you're energized by your work 100%. Yeah. But I would argue that that's true for purpose as well. So purpose and passion intersect for sure.
Yeah. And it also
they don't always look the same.
And I think if equating energy to passion works, the next thing that occurs to me is that both of those things have to be directed. And so if that direction turns out to be purpose, it feels like fulfillment to me.
Agreed. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because when passion is combined with, like I said, service to others, and it's actually something that you're good at, yes, it can be your purpose in life. Because, you know, I can be passionate about, I don't know, singing, for example, but I have a terrible voice. I really, really do. You know, so it's not something that I can share with others. And it's not something that I have experience with. I used to do gymnastics when I was a kid. It was something that I loved to do. It was something I was really passionate about, but I didn't stick with it. So, you know, even though I like doing cartwheels with my kids, you know, it's not something that I have the experience and the strengths in, because also purpose requires something that you have natural ability for, that you have experience in, that you have, you know, talent equals kind of natural ability as well. And then again, something that you can bring to other people to bring some sort of improvement into other people's lives. So I 100% think that passion equals energy, but it doesn't always equal purpose.
Yeah. And I also want to pick up on what you said about service, because I think that might be easy for some people to misinterpret. And I'm going to use the example that you did, and I'm going to cite and painting. You said your passion might be painting. I see what happens to other people when they see and paintings. That is service, it seems to me. Because when people see those and they get engaged and they light up, and especially when they go so far as to make their own interpretations of what they're seeing, that's service in my estimation.
Yeah,
so, 100%. You know, it doesn't mean like you have to deliver Meals on Wheels every day or something like that.
No.
I just wanted to sort of broaden that. And I have one other question before we get into how people can find the book and how they can find you for all of the work that you do. And this question that I'm about to ask you is half joking, but no more than half joking.
Okay, can't wait.
You wrote in your book that one of your teachers said some disarmingly uncomplimentary things about your writing. Mm-hmm. And that affected you for 17 years. Mm-hmm. So I had a similar experience when I was in high school. I had a guidance counselor who told me that I would never go to college. So the first thing that went through my head was, what in the hell is a guy like you doing as a guidance counselor? But the next thing that went through my head was, I already knew that guy was wrong. Mm-hmm. So my semi-joking question is agency necessarily different from stubbornness? Was I already aware enough of my own agency to know he was wrong, or was I just stubborn?
Interesting. How old were you? High school?
Yeah, he probably said it to me in my senior year. So let's say I was 18.
So let me ask you a question. How was your confidence level at that point? I mean, what did you think very highly of yourself in general?
No, I didn't actually. As a matter of fact, I don't know if there's anything like a self-esteem scale, but I was probably at the lower end of it. But I just knew the guy was wrong, and I just knew at some point in my life, I certainly knew I had the aptitude, and I knew at some point I would connect with the desire, and it happened when I was 28.
In that case, I 100% believe that it was agency. You had a self-awareness that people at that age typically don't.
So I will explain to you that also part of the reason for my asking the question is that Grandma O'Brien loved to say, there's no sense of being Irish if you can't be thick.
Well, I'm Polish, so we share that stubbornness trait, 100%.
Okay, so at this point, I do want to share again your book, which is The Opposite of Empty. I want to verify for folks who are interested that they can indeed find it on Amazon.
Yes.
And I know that because I did. And how else, if people would like to reach you, talk to you about the work you do, et cetera, how should they connect with you?
So the best way to connect with me is through, really social media. So I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, LinkedIn, Threads, which is a subset of Instagram now. And I'm available through there. I also, my business is called The Mindful Waypoint. And my direct email is hello@themindfulwaypoint.com. So Waypoint is WAYPOINT.
Okay. And the mindfulwaypoint.com is also your website?
It is, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so for people who may not watch the video recording of this or may not be with us live, I just want to point out that your name is Izabela, Izabela, Oquendo, OQUENDO. And I also want to thank you very much for being here today and doing this with me. I'm not sure if we were supposed to have fun, but I did.
I had fun. No, this was great. Thank you for having me. This is really cool. Yeah,
it is really cool. And please don't be surprised if I ask you to do it again.
You got it. I'm here for you.
All right. Thank you. And for everyone else who was good enough to join us today, I will be back 2 weeks from today, and I'll see you then.
Thank you for tuning into The Anxious Voyage, the program dedicated to sharing stories, helping people, and celebrating life. You can see and listen to The Anxious Voyage on syndicated Dream Vision 7 radio network every Monday at 1 a.m. and 1 p.m. Eastern Time, with live broadcast every first and third Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern. If you have a story to tell, or if you know someone who does, please email the host, Mark O'Brien, at mark@o'briencg.com. In the meantime, please remember, the only bad stories are the ones we don't share.
This is Dream Vision 7 Radio Network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe, relax, and enjoy. Let life flow.